The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your qualified health provider with any questions you may have. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Reliance on any information provided here is solely at your own risk.
Welcome. This is Birth, Baby. Your hosts are Sierra Morgan and Samantha Kelly. Sierra is a birth doula, hypnobirthing educator, and pediatric sleep consultant.
Samantha is a birth doula, childbirth educator, and lactation counselor. Join us as we guide you through your options for your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support. If you enjoy our content, please be sure to like, follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us gain visibility to other people that could benefit from listening in. Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Jayne Havens, and she's here to chat about the importance of healthy sleep hygiene for babies and toddlers. She is a certified pediatric sleep consultant through the Institute of Pediatric Sleep and Parenting, and also the Center for Pediatric Sleep Management, which is where I did my training because that's her company. And she believes there is no one-size-fits-all approach to teaching a child to fall asleep and back to sleep independently. All children, regardless of age, are capable of learning this lifelong skill, and they just need to be given the opportunity to try, which is exactly why I loved learning from her. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you both.
I'm excited to learn more about this. I'm a mother, I'm a doula, and I have Sierra as my partner who talks about sleep all the time, but I feel like I still don't know that much about it. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more from both of y'all today. So to kick us off, can you tell us how you got into sleep consulting and kind of what was your background with your own children? Did you sleep train them? What did that look like?
Sure. So the reason that I got into this line of work was because of my own children. In my sort of former life, I was in catering sales. That was what I did before I was a sleep consultant. And I worked events, long weekends, holidays, long hours during the week. I was always working. And when my son was born 12 years ago, I left my job in events to stay home with him and really enjoyed it. And he was a great little sleeper. He did beautifully as a newborn, but he hit that 4-month sleep regression that so many people talk about. And as a new parent, I had no idea what was going on. He went from sleeping through the night to waking up every single hour on the dot. And he just needed a pacifier. I'd pop that pacifier back in and he'd go back to sleep, but it was hourly and it was driving us nuts. And as a first-time parent, I just didn't know what to do. So this was before Facebook groups. I literally went to the bookstore and I sat on the floor and I passed through some books and I was on blogs trying to figure out how to get him to sleep. And I basically implemented a variation of the Ferber method. He was upset for 27 minutes and I was upset for 27 minutes. And then he slept through the night and that was basically the end of it. And it was really, really a magical, transformative experience for my entire family. And I just became obsessed with infant sleep after that. All of my friends were jealous. They wanted to know how to get their kids to sleep through the night. And I helped friends, and then it turned into friends of friends for years. It was just a hobby. And fast forward, my daughter was born 4 years later, and I knew so much more at that point. So with my daughter, we implemented healthy sleep habits from the very beginning so that we wouldn't really have to formally sleep train her. And we got her into a good rhythm, a good groove, and she did great. And by that point, I actually was ready to go back to work. Stay-at-home mom life got old, for lack of a better way of saying it. And I really was craving something more. And when I was trying to figure out what to do, I just kept coming back to the idea of sleep consulting because I sort of was already doing it. I just wasn't getting paid for it. I wasn't doing it in the way that I do it now. But I just kept coming back to I should turn this hobby into a business. I went online, took a certification course, and what was intended to be a side hustle and a passion project turned into a really thriving, successful business and career, which I never anticipated or expected, but it's been really fun.
I love that. And it's so nice when something that is our passion becomes our work, because then it doesn't as much feel like work. I know people say that all the time, but it really is true. I think that people don't really understand what working with a sleep consultant looks like a lot of the time. Can you just give us a brief, like when someone wants to work with you or work with a sleep consultant, what does that look like?
Sure. So the beautiful thing about consulting is that like you get to do it your own way, right? Like I support families through sleep training and you support families through sleep training, and we might do it differently. I will share what it looks like in my world. I offer a 2-week consultation, and what that looks like is basically people sign up on my website, they pay. It prompts them to fill out a really detailed questionnaire about their baby or child. I take all of that information in addition to whatever information I gathered on our initial phone call, and I put together a really comprehensive and thorough written sleep plan. The plan outlines everything from, age appropriate daytime schedules, bedtime routine, for older children, communication strategies, role play strategies. And then after they read through that plan, we get onto a phone call, go over the plan, answer all of their questions, make sure that they feel comfortable with what I've presented to them. And then I support them through the process largely via text message and audio notes for 2 weeks. And sometimes we hop onto an extra phone call here and there. And we definitely do a wrap up call at the end. And I like to use that wrap up call as an opportunity to discuss things that might come up down the road. So, if I'm working with a 2-year-old, we might discuss the crib to bed transition or dropping the nap. If I'm working with a little 14-week-old like I am right now, we might discuss what it looks like when the baby starts to roll. So I like to leave my clients feeling really educated and empowered to handle everything that comes their way down the road. And we get them results. We get the kids sleeping. That's ultimately what matters.
Which is so huge. I feel like that's one of the things that I hear about most often, especially with second-time parents, is they come and they tell us about how their first was just so difficult, and their postpartum experience overall was so difficult because, baby wasn't sleeping and needed to contact nap all the time and all of these different things. And it really changes how you feel about your postpartum experience and how you go about parenting when you're so exhausted that you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything.
You can't enjoy your baby. I'm working the little 14-week-old that I'm working with right now. She actually sleeps beautifully overnight, but she takes horrible naps during the day. And the parents articulated to me on our first call that the reason that they reached out to me is because they felt like they weren't enjoying their baby. They're like, our baby is exhausted. By 4 or 5 o'clock, she is a total disaster. And dad's getting home from work. Mom's on the tail end of her maternity leave. They are dreading the evenings with this screaming, crying baby. And we're going to get her straight. And the whole purpose is so that the baby is well rested and happy, and the parents can enjoy parenting, which is, I think, really important.
So important. It's so huge. So why do you think that sleep training is so controversial?
The crying, right? Like, let's just say it. There is a lot of negative hysteria on the internet and amongst mom groups. I actually think it all boils down to moms shaming other moms, which is really a shame. And I see this not just with sleep training, but I see it in the way that we choose to feed our babies, right? Like, moms who bottle feed sometimes feel judged by moms who are breastfeeding, or there's just like so much mom shaming. And I think that if we mothers could all be kinder to one another, sleep training wouldn't be so controversial. But there is a lot of language that swirls around online about how crying is bad. And I personally am in the camp that crying is okay. Nobody likes to hear their baby cry. Nobody wants to hear their child upset. But I also think that temporary bouts of crying are safe and okay, and really important if that leads us to a well-rested and happy child. And, the beautiful thing about sleep training is actually when it's implemented properly, the crying is really limited and temporary. The whole idea that like your baby's going to be crying all night long during sleep training is just sort of straight up untrue. To bring it back to this little 14-week-old that I'm working with right now, mom texted me this morning in preparation for morning nap. And she was like, okay, so if she cries for the entire hour during nap time, we get her up and then we change her diaper. Like she was going through the protocol. And I said to her, I was like, I really don't think that's what's going to happen. I think she's going to fuss and yell for like maybe 15 to 25 minutes and then she's going to sleep. And literally, that's exactly what happened. She fussed and yelled for about 18 minutes, and then she slept for an hour and 10 minutes, which is amazing, right? So I think that there's a lot of hysteria and anticipation for like the worst case scenario that, when you really do it properly, it's not so bad.
And sleep training can kind of be like tailored to what the family needs too, right? Like it's not all, I think a lot of times when I hear people in mom groups talking about it, I see them talking about extinction sleep training, which is like putting your baby in bed, walking away and leaving them alone. And that's not what it is for everyone. For some babies, maybe so, but for the majority, not, right?
So what I want to say about that is that extinction gets a really bad rap. And I totally respect the idea that parents don't love the idea of putting their baby down and walking away and not coming back until either the nap is over or the next morning. Totally understandable that could feel hard and like the wrong fit for your family, but it is a totally viable option. It's entirely safe and effective. And if it doesn't align with your parenting style, totally okay. There are lots of other options, but if you're listening to this and you feel like that's maybe what would work best for your baby or your child or your family, I just want to give you permission to put your baby down and give them a chance to fall asleep. That's okay. If you're not comfortable with that, there's so many different options. One of the most sort of parent present and gradual approaches that I teach is I like to call it just sit. For a baby that's being nursed to sleep, maybe we start by just rocking them to sleep. And after they get used to being rocked to sleep, we would just hold them and sit still while they fall asleep. And once they get used to that, maybe we just hold them until they're comfy, cozy, drowsy, calm, and then put them into the crib and offer them some like forehead strokes or some some belly jiggles. And so there are really gradual ways of supporting a baby to fall asleep in a new way. But also, I want to be really clear that it's entirely safe and effective to just give your baby a chance to fall asleep without all of that. And 9 times out of 10, like these babies don't cry extensively, or it's really never as bad as what parents imagine it to be.
I also love like when I was doing your training, you're like, okay, you guys, but really everything leads to extinction. Like the end goal is that you get to leave the night, and also sleep training doesn't always mean night weaning. So yes, you can still be going back in. It really just means the baby's falling back asleep independently. But it was funny because I was like, wow, I guess when you really look at it, like you just explained something where you're slowly and gradually getting step by step, a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less involvement. But at the end of the day, eventually what you're going to do is you're going to leave the room and maybe the baby's not crying. Extinction doesn't always mean crying. It just is you leave the room and then that's it. One of my favorite things is that sometimes when parents anticipate that there's going to be more crying, sometimes there's just not. And I have a great example because this morning I woke up to a text that I absolutely love. I did a 1-hour sleep call with a family. I call it an Ask Me Anything call. And I did, they had already like done taking care of babies or something like that with their kiddo. He's now 9 months old. And they went to the East Coast for a funeral for like quite a long time. And then they came back and they're like, our kid's sleep is jacked. Like just waking up at 4:15 in the morning. This is a nightmare. And was taking 20-minute naps. It's like he used to sleep an hour and a half. What the heck happened? 9-month sleep regression, blah, blah, blah. And after 30 minutes of the phone call, I felt like I had given them a sufficient amount of information that they could try. And it almost seemed like a waste to just keep talking for 30 more minutes. I was like, if you want to bank this, let's bank it. ask me a couple of questions by text, or we can, pick up a phone call again in a couple of days after you've tried some of these things. And this kid was crying a lot. He was waking up before 15, screaming, and would not go back to sleep, and screaming when he woke up from a nap all the time. And these parents were already actually kind of comfortable with the crying. They just were like, how do we get them? The crying's not working, right? He's still not falling asleep no matter how long we leave him. And that's hours. And so she texted me this morning, wow. It's 7 and he's still sleeping. I had to check the monitor to see if he was still okay. Are you magic? So that's what I got to, wake up to this morning. And the baby did not cry. Actually, he cried less than he was. And it was really, we were just working on schedule. So it wasn't even technique. It was, we needed shorter wake windows, and we needed to pump with another, bolus another nap on the go, because he was not going to get that third nap in his crib because he wasn't quite tired enough, but we had to bridge the gap to bedtime. And we just did a couple of small things. And I think people think that sleep consulting is this big scary beast, when really it can be some super small fixes where we get to seem like magic, but we're not. So, I think that people worry that they missed the boat. Like, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to sleep train because I waited. Is there a best age, in your opinion, to work on sleep? And if so, is there ever a time it's too late?
So the best age, I have like a preferred age for babies. I think that between 12 and 16 weeks is a total sweet spot to work on just falling asleep independently, just like being put back down in the crib and being given an opportunity to try and fall asleep. I think that like 3 to 4 month window is a great opportunity to start. That being said, if your baby is older, it also works at 5 months, 6 months, 7 months. Like, there's no time that is a bad time if you're feeling like what's going on in your household is not working for your baby or for your family. I think that making a change anytime that sleep feels unsustainable or just not going well, it's entirely okay to work on it. I don't think it's ever too late. I wrapped up not too long ago with a 7-year-old who had never slept independently ever. And we taught him how to fall asleep all by himself in his bed, in his room. And we gave him the confidence to feel like he could stay there all night long without needing to climb into his mom's bed. And when I tell you, he was so proud of himself, he felt so good. So like, it's never too late. And if what's going on in your household is not working for your family, I love to give parents permission to take ownership of this. Like I always say, like, when your 2-year-old is in charge of what sleep looks like in your home, generally speaking, it doesn't really go so well. And when we absolve our toddlers or our preschoolers of such big responsibility, they actually end up feeling so much safer, so much more secure. And this really is like a mommy and daddy decision. This is not a 2-year-old decision. So no, there's never a bad time to work on it. If it feels hard, I think it's really important for parents to feel empowered to take back control of what bedtime looks like and take back control over what the night looks like for the best interest of the entire family.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I have a 5-year-old who is a little bit spicy with sleep sometimes. And I remember last year we were having the worst time with sleep. And I was texting Sierra and like, okay, like how long should she be napping? Like knowing the nap windows for these kids is so tricky, especially as they're like starting school and, oh, well, we have to be up for school at 6 a.m. So what does that look like for bedtime and all this now? And figuring out like all of that. So she was able to really help me like hone in on how much sleep does my child need in that time. And, we actually discovered she was getting too much sleep. So we were cutting back and have had such a huge difference. And so even for my older child, being able to call on a sweet friend to help with that and give me a little bit of guidance.
She was like, I feel bad asking you because like you're not my sleep consultant. I was like, you can just shut up right now. Like you have free passes all the time to text me about these kids' sleep. One of the things that you said that I really want to just reiterate to families listening is kids feel safer with boundaries. And people tell me all the time, like, my kid needs me. They're crying, like they need me. And I'm like, yeah, but if we just keep going and picking them up, we're reaffirming their fears that, yes, this is unsafe. And if we could just give them a little bit of support in their bed, just with a check-in and a loving touch, and mommy would never leave you here, or daddy or whoever would never leave you here if we thought you weren't safe. And that looks different when we can't explain that to them, but we can show them in our presence. And then we end up with these happier, healthier kids that are like thriving during the day. And you're not just dealing with this monster, overtired kiddo. And parents, again, yes, are enjoying being parents during the day, and they are more rested. And this parent shaming over sleep training, saying that we're damaging our children, is so wild. I just want to give one quick little thing. I had a mom who was co-sleeping with her kid, sleeping all night long with her kid in her bed, where the baby was waking about every hour to nurse. And y'all, she was 15 months old. And she was like, I can't do this anymore. And we're splitting. The parents were splitting. And she's like, she's not going to be able to nurse on me all night when she's at the other parent's house. And so this was a necessity. And some moms and other parent groups would be shaming her for doing this. And it's like, this is so much healthier for her child to work through this with her, rather than just cold turkey send her to her dad's house and have her not be able to do this every night. And she said, I'm worried she's going to be mad at me. I'm worried that we're not going to have as good of a relationship. And her 15-month-old would now lean over into her bed and go, "Good night, mommy, bye," and want her to walk out of the room. And she was like, she's happy, and we're still cuddling during the day, and everything else is actually better because she's happier, because she's not exhausted all day. And I'm a better mom because I'm not exhausted all day. And we have to sometimes put our own mask on before we put on other people's masks.
Yeah. And then it all also boils down to, like, that is proof in the pudding that it is absolutely okay for that child to be temporarily upset for a brief period of time, because that 15-month-old didn't know what was in her best interest. Like, she is not old enough to make mature decisions for herself. And it was up to her mom. Just like we don't let our children decide who their caregivers are, we don't let our children decide what car seats they sit in, right? Like, there are certain things that are just parent decisions. And I put this in that category. This is a mommy and daddy decision. And this is what sleep is going to look like, because I know what is best for you. And you don't know what is best for you. So I'm going to help you here.
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta teach them. So if anyone is listening and thinking they might want to explore working with you as their sleep consultant, or if they might want to explore becoming a sleep consultant, where can they go to learn more about you and your services?
Sure. So I guess if you are looking for a sleep consultant, call Sierra, because she's amazing. And I taught her a lot of what she knows.
Her SEO is way better than mine. She sent me somebody the other day that contacted her from Austin all the way to where she lives up north, wanting like a preschool chat. By the way, I did that the other day. But yeah, your SEO is way better than mine. But maybe call me if you're in Austin.
Yeah. If for some reason you want to reach out to me for sleep consulting, my website is thesnoozefest.com. And I love supporting all families, but I'm really into working with kids ages 3 and up right now. It seems to be my new sweet spot. I love actually working with the kiddos. Like, I always say, like, sleep training is not something you do to your child. It's something you do for your child. And with older kiddos, it's something you can do with your child. And that's really, really fun. If you're interested in actually exploring becoming a sleep consultant, I would love to connect. And I have a few places where you can find me. On Facebook, I have a Facebook group called Becoming a Sleep Consultant. It's a great place to connect with me. I also have a podcast called Becoming a Sleep Consultant. And the website is thecpsm.com.
Love it. I absolutely loved taking your training. I think I've had like 3 or 4 people that have ended up taking your training after me telling them how much I love it. And it is invaluable, the continued education that you give. It's constantly being updated with new research, new interviews. I love it. So thank you so much for being here. And as always, we just value your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Birth, Baby. Thanks again to Longing for Orpheus for our music. You can look him up on Spotify. Remember to leave a review, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.